Where's my man Ben? You got this, Ben? Okay. All right, good afternoon. In the respect of your time, I'm going to start exactly at 2 o'clock. And let me suggest that we have been hurried, we've been deliberate, and we ran hard after the first call came in at 9:40 p.m. that there was a robbery in our city. And I can tell you that to say that this case is complicated is an understatement. I can tell you from the inception that we used every resource of our police department. Our evidence technician in our crime labs was at the scene almost immediately and continued to work through the weekend, and they still continually work very hard today to analyze evidence, video, locations, technology that's way over my head. I can tell you that our special operations people did not sleep. Those are our covert and undercover people. We put them to a challenge that they've never seen before, and they came through with flying colors. Our tactical strike teams combed the area on our side of the city, on Tireman, and they were invaluable, and they continue to be today. And our detectives, they came together as one and worked as hard as they could work. I can also tell you that the community stood tall. We got many tips that were valuable. We had to vet a lot of information that was not so useful, but that goes with a large investigation. I can tell you that our faith-based community backed us 100%. Our imam here, 1 year ago, we were at the library on a 9/11 commemoration. I called him immediately, and I thank you for what you did to deal with the family at their time of grief. And as helpful and as grieving as the family could be, they helped us in countless ways that we're not going to get into today. The first thing I'm going to tell you is that the 3 robberies in our city were acts of random violence. It wouldn't matter who the subjects encountered, they were going to get robbed and or hurt that night. I can tell you that on Friday, the 6th of September, between 9:40 and 9:53 p.m., 3 people were robbed. The first one was at Stedman and Moross. A lady was assaulted and robbed of her purse. That was the first one at 9:40. Moments later, we get the call. Somewhere about 9:52 p.m., at Bingham and Moross, that's where our second victim was encountered in her car, totally innocent, pulling up at the family home, and was ultimately fatally shot, and her purse was taken. The third victim was on Jonathan near Moross, who got in the perp's way, and they fired shots at him, a shot at him. The perpetrators ran north, and subsequent to that, they ran north on Jonathan towards Tireman. Our responding officers combed the neighborhood, and this is the only thing they were able to come up with first. A shadow of a car. After that, we developed some more information. We have a second picture here. And again, this is highly complicated. I'm not trying to be evasive. There's just some things I can't tell you. But I can tell you that they developed another picture from more valuable video. And we were able to get that car. Let's go on, Ben. To date, we did, in fact, initially arrest 4 people, and I'm going to go over the timeline in a moment. 3 are in custody because they were deemed responsible for this crime. We have a male, 17 years old. We have 2 juveniles, one 13 and one 14 years old. And with the juveniles, let me tell you that from a legal and criminal perspective, that put a horrible timeline on us. We could not disclose to the media information that we were trying to vet and investigate, but it's very fragile. The timelines are fragile and the law is clear. So we have a very short window to put our case together and to bring juveniles to the juvenile court. I can tell you that Prosecutor Kim Worthy was notified of this case early on, and she directed us all the way through it with her entire team, and we were going to make sure that we did things by the numbers. Equally important, I can tell you that we didn't want anyone hurt. We did not want anyone hurt. And based on the amount of work we had done, I was reasonably satisfied that we had mitigated the threat by these 3 individuals because we knew where they were and we kept them in check. So I just want to make sure that the community understands that in spite of the fact that it took us 3 days to make disclosures, we knew who they were and we were working those cases very actively. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Next, please. Okay, so when you look at this, okay, let me quickly point out that on many of the tips we got from the community, the one case where the purse was stolen and the young lady was fatally shot, we recovered a purse north of our city in Detroit, and again, there was additional video that was gleaned in that neighborhood, and that'll all be presented in court. Next, please. Okay, I just want to be accurate. I typically don't read these or look at them, but I'm going to have to do that today. All right, the screen you're looking at indicates a traffic stop in the city of Detroit that happened on Saturday, 9/7 at approximately 4:30 p.m. That was the first break in the case. There was a vehicle spotted by a Detroit motor officer that ran a red light. And our communications that we now have in place, our undercover people that were working that area heard the run come out, and they went to the area. There was a car crash there at Grand River and Evergreen involving the car that we wanted. Subjects in the car did try to attempt to run. Our officers were able to track them down and arrest them. I can tell you that the car they hit, unfortunately, was totaled, but the saving grace was that the 2 innocent people in that car were not injured at all. They walked away from the car. That was the biggest break that we got in the case at that point in time. That person is a 17-year-old, and he'll be going to court, and you'll be notified when that happens. There was a passenger in the car that was investigated and at this time released, but that investigation is continuing. Next, please. On 9/9, and again, we've developed a lot of information over the last several days. We did, in fact, identify a young man who was 14 years old. Ultimately, after a lot of work, we made an arrest at Narden Park at 5:30 in the afternoon. The incident was non-eventful. There was 2 people taken into custody at that time. One was armed with a weapon. However, it wasn't the 14-year-old, and the 14-year-old is now being held in connection with the fatal shooting. Next, please. You've heard me say a million times that crime knows no borders. I can tell you that when it's all said and done, these 3 individuals are going to be looked at throughout the region for other crime and other cities. We've cooperated with everyone in our region. In addition to the Wayne County prosecutor, we've dealt with the U.S. Marshals and got great support from them. Detroit Police has been very instrumental. Oak Park Police. Detroit Public School Police Department, ATF, and again, let me thank the media because you kept asking for tips, and the tips came in. So I'm very grateful for the media and for the citizens that gave us tips. Next, please. Is that it? All right. You know, among some of the tips we got and inquiries we got, there was some belief or thought that maybe these 3 victims had something to do with this incident. I want to emphasize they were purely victims. It wasn't because they had a fight or a spat with anyone. Had absolutely nothing to do with lifestyles, arguments at work. They're totally random acts of violence in our city. And that's the way this case is going to be treated. And there's a few questions that I may answer. I'll open it up to questions.
Chief, you said 4 people were taken into custody, but then now that number is 3.
On the traffic stop, there was 2 people in that car. Well, if you want to count them, there's 5 total that were taken into custody on this. 2 at the traffic stop. And again, I've been saturated with information, and I believe I was told that there was 2 arrested at Arden Park with the second person armed with some type of weapon not related to this case. So a total of 5, but only 3 were related to this case. Okay? I just want to be clear because there's so much inaccurate or partial information out here.
Hey, Chief, there was a report about that one of the suspects wearing a tether. Is that correct?
That's correct. And although it didn't help us to locate him, it helped us track the movements after we got him. So I would say that without getting into it, that's going to prove to be very valuable. And it might interest you to know that because we take a zero tolerance policy to shoplifters in our city, because it was really plaguing us at one time, he got arrested here in the city of Dearborn for shoplifting, him and the 13-year-old, and we had contact with them on that. So,
Chief, there have been a rumor saying that it has nothing to do with the robbery, and it's a criminal case, and she's been killed due to certain issues related to family. Is that true?
Madam Diva, I'm glad you asked me that. That's precisely what people were calling and asking. That is absolutely false. Absolutely false. This was a random act of violence by 3 people that had committed similar crimes around our region, not our city, but our region. And I'm not at liberty to go any further with that because those cases belong to other people. And you let our people know that that is absolutely false. She was an innocent victim. It was a random crime. And if I were in that car, or any of you were in that car, the same thing would have happened to you. Has nothing to do with anything.
Chief, help us understand, if someone's wearing a tether, how did that not help track that person down?
We'd have to know that ahead of time, sir. We did not know that until later.
These 3, could they be connected to an incident that happened in Detroit on August the 30th, a shooting at a Green Light gas station?
I could say it's possible. I'd have to double check. I'm going to let Detroit do their own investigation, but I will say this. These 3 are responsible for regional crime.
You say where the 3 are right now, where they're being housed, and the relationship between the 3?
The relationship is just neighborhood acquaintances. I can tell you that 2 are probably in the youth home, Lincoln Center right now, and 1 is in jail right now. We're going to let you know the court dates that are coming. And quite honestly, because of all the information that flooded out last night, we had to rush this. And not only did we have to rush this disclosure, but we had to rush the work we were doing on the other end so that we could meet the critical timelines in court. But I want to reemphasize again that the public safety was not jeopardized because our teams were on top of this.
This morning there was a robbery at Indiana and Ross. Can you
I can only tell you we're actively pursuing it.
Chief, can you say two questions? If the weapon has been recovered, and if you think this is gang related?
Gang related, possibly. They hang out together. I'm not going to go into any of the evidence that's been recovered at this time, but I can tell you we've taken scores of evidence that will help establish our case. Case is ongoing. We've got enough to get the warrants and get them charged, but I can tell you none of our detectives are taking a day off tomorrow. We got a lot of work to do, and I'm not going to get into any of the evidence.
And just so I'm clear, you said 13, 14, and then an adult male and on the ages
17, ma'am.
17.
Chief, have you talked to the victim's family at all since you made these arrests?
I have. I've talked to the victim's family all through the weekend and today as well.
And can you tell us what message did you give them? How did you?
I'm not going to get into what I told them. I'm just going to say that I assured them we would do everything we could to bring the people responsible to justice, and we did. And I can say that in spite of the grief that they were feeling, as helpful as they needed to be to our department, they have been.
Do we know who the shooter was, and was it possibly a 14-year-old?
We know who the shooter is. I'm going to wait for the court documents to clear. They haven't cleared yet. It'll become a record soon. But I'm going to tell you that we're confident that we know who the shooter is.
What goes through your mind when you hear these kids, they're 13, 14 years old, and committed such a heinous crime?
Question is, what goes through your mind when you hear that they're 13 and 14 years of age, the kids? I can tell you that I view it a tragedy. It's a tragedy for their families. I've actually talked to one of their parents, and it's just unfortunate, but we have an obligation to hold them accountable. And if you really want to know what goes through my mind, I think we all own failures when kids get on the wrong track like this. So it's everybody, it's society's failure in my view.
We also have video of a police chase on, I think it was 99, the day that the arrest was made in the accident. Was there a police chase involved in that?
I think they did try to escape the motor officer, but ended up in a crash a short distance away. And because our officers have been deployed all over the region in pursuit of information on this case, they were reasonably close. They were able to assist, and they closed in and made an arrest.
Chief, just to verify one more time, these three individuals who you have in custody are all from the city of Detroit, or some are from here?
They're all from the city of Detroit.
Chief, could you detail how the arrest was made or enacted at Narden Park? How you determined the suspects were there?
We have some very good officers working in this building, and they're they're very dedicated. And I told you that we had somehow mitigated the public safety threat. Our officers knew basically where they were at. Most of the time they had an eye on them, and I can tell you that it was with great tactical design that we did not want to harm our officers or harm the kids being arrested. So we went through great pains to ensure that when we took them into custody, we could do it safely, both for our men and women and for the community and for these young people involved with this. And
How many armed robberies do you think they were a part of, this crew, and do they always cover up, conceal their identities?
I don't know about the second part of your question, whether they always cover up or not.
Did they do anything to hide their faces or anything like that?
They were covered. I think that's a matter of record. They were covered. I can tell you that in our city alone, between 9:40 and 9:53 p.m., they committed 3 armed robberies and/or an assault.
Chief, you won't talk about the weapon acquired, but was this a legally obtained weapon, or was this a weapon that may have been stolen, or how did that end up in the suspect's
I have no idea on that right now. I don't have that information. And if I did have it, I'm not sure I would answer the question, but I don't have that information. That's a great question, a great series of questions. I just don't know that right now. Anything else? We good?
Is this family here, or their mom or someone coming to meet?
Well, yeah, this is their family, and
You know, if they wanted to make a statement or something.
they're asking, does anyone want to make a statement? No, they.
We trust the police investigation, and we believe they're gonna do the justice, and as far as we know, in Dearborn,
Please, can we have you on mic? Can we have you on mic?
It's your call.
I don't have anything else.
Just what you were just saying, just what you were just saying. 'Cause we
Uh,
have you on microphone.
Yeah, if you just want to say what you said, but he's not taking any questions because he doesn't want any questions, right? Okay.
Just a general statement. Yeah.
Would you please say the names? So we
Yeah, my name Imam Husham Al-Husseini. I'm sorry. Thank you, Chief. My name Imam Husham Al-Husseini. I'm the director of Karbala Islamic Center in Dearborn, Michigan. And this is her brother.
I am Ali Al-Janabi, the brothers of the victim Sajja Al-Janabi.
Actually, all what I want to say to thank the police of Dearborn for their fast, quick investigation, and they captured the criminals, and we trust their investigation, and we're looking forward for the punishment of the criminals, and we hope that this kind of criminal won't happen anymore in Dearborn, because it is really it's bad for the whole community, and in Godwill, working as a community and faith-based and law enforcement, these things won't happen anymore because it's no good for nobody, especially for a family who suffered in Iraq a lot. Her father been murdered in Iraq, her uncle been murdered in Iraq, and she got murdered here. It's very pity, very sorry.
Yeah, I just would like to thank Dearborn Police, the hard work. I mean, they only have one evidence, the white car they found in Detroit, and they gathered all the information. I really appreciate what they did to us. I would thank everybody who helped and come up with the good information, the videotape and all that. I mean, it is what it is. You can't stop it, but hopefully soon they're going to be in jail and find justice for my sister. Thank you.
Chief. God bless you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Thank
If we could just spell your name for us, please.
Sorry.
Spell your name for us, please.
Imam, I-M-A-M, Husham, H-U-S-H-A-M, Al-Husseini, A-L, H-U-S-A-I-N-Y.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. That's it. Let me again say to the media, thank you for putting out what you put out all weekend long, and we couldn't have done it without you, so thank you.